Hello, this is Wmpyr. All right, so I received a question from Hot Pop Corn Cake, and I already answered him back. So this is a related topics video that I want to talk about Defang the snake here, and yeah, so it was pretty much a question pertaining to Defang the snake. And as you can see right here, the meaning behind Defang the snake um, is it basically has to do with the concept being once you remove the fangs from a snake, the snake can no longer harm you. Is the idea, right? And I want you guys to understand that this right here, what you're seeing here, is a very textbook definition, and that makes it sound real official, but it's also a very shallow one. And in my opinion, further study is necessary. Just this alone, to me, honestly, this kind of means it sounds cool, but it means nothing. This is, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like useless. Is the way that I see it, right? It's just like popular term, and it sounds, once again, it sounds real cool, but do you really understand it? And in order to understand it better, it's necessary to look into it deeper. And the reason why I say that is because defang the snake technically doesn't make any sense. Why? Um, so if I'm trying to, let's say, hurt my opponent's arm to the point where they cannot hold a weapon, right? So if I if I damage their arm or I cause so much pain that they can no longer hold a weapon or they can no longer use that arm to attack me with, that is the idea of defang the snake. So I'm attacking their arm essentially, attack the limb, attack the attack. These are all falls into the category of defang the snake. Most people are headhunters. So my opponent is going to go for my head. Let's say they got a baseball bat and they swing towards my head as hard as they can. And let's say I got a knife or maybe I have a machete and I go to cut them on the arm, right? So if we do that trade-off, and let's say I cut them so good that their wrist is barely there, like it's about to come off. I'm about to amputate their arm or something. That I cut it so bad, viciously. I'm sorry for the graphic image. I apologize for that. But if I get what I want, which is attack their arm, and they get what they want, in other words, we end up trading, then I got the worst end of the deal because they're going for a primary target while I'm going for a secondary target. And the primary target is going to win. They're going to knock me out or worse. So it doesn't make sense. And then you might go, well, that's the thing. If you're going to do defang the snake properly, then you shouldn't get hit. And that's where I say, well, I agree with you, but if you don't take procedures to make sure that you don't get hit, then defang the snake is useless. And if you look at right here, this definition, nothing in this definition tells you about not getting hit. You not getting hit or you not trading with the opponent, there's nothing here that covers that. All it says is basically take out their arm, you know, diminish the opponent's ability to attack. But it says nothing about you, you know. Um, it says that will automatically, it doesn't say automatically, but it pretty much goes into increases your chances of survival as if that's automatic, and it's not. So that's the problem that I have. If your defang the snake doesn't do anything, like actively doesn't do anything to make sure that you don't get hit, then it's pointless because you're going to lose that exchange. They're going for your head, you're going for their arm, you're going to lose. Um, so yeah, that's why I say it's important to look at the deeper meaning behind this. I'm not saying that this is incorrect. I'm just saying that we have to not just go with a fad because it's cool, and it's important to read behind the lines and think about things. Just become a critical thinker. That's important for society. Um, and look, all right, so I'm gonna give you guys an example of what actually happened to me. I was at an MMA gym, and I'm there to. I'm doing crazy stuff. I wasn't there to compete and become an MMA fighter. I was there to hone my skills and use everything that I've learned in the world of MMA and try to make it work in in the MMA. Yeah, in in the cage of MMA. And so I sparred against a boxer. And this guy, he's throwing all kinds of boxing punches at me. And guess what? I am doing what we call in the Filipino martial arts a destruction. So I am elbowing his punches, right? Which is, it technically falls under the category of Defang the snake. I am attacking the attack. And so I do all that, right? And can you imagine what happened? The guy just looked at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" I landed these not just once or twice. I did multiple, and it had zero effect on him. So then you're probably going, "Well, did you guys wear gloves?" And the answer is yes. Yes, we wore gloves. And you go, aha, that's why it didn't work, Wmpyr. It's because he had gloves on. And these are MMA gloves, so they are not the big boxing gloves. They're the smaller MMA gloves. And you go, well, still, he had protection on his hands. Look, there could be a million reasons why the technique doesn't work, right? And I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. I knew this wasn't going to work. I just did exactly like textbook. I blasted his punch with my elbow from various angles. And I did that, but it did not hurt him at all. Like, he felt no pain whatsoever. And I knew that that was going to happen. And this is important because in traditional martial arts, and a lot of traditional martial arts, they teach you this kind of thing, like the guy punches and you're going to do this and this, and then you're going to break his arm, or the guy's going to kick you and you do this and that, and then you break his leg, or you grab him and you do this and then you break his neck. And they make it sound so simple to do those things. And from my fights, my full contact fights, I've known that that's not true. It's not easy to break joints. It just doesn't happen that easily. Um, yeah. So I knew this would also be the case with these destructions that I was doing, and sure enough, it was. So then, probably a lot of people at that point will go, well, you see, FMA doesn't work. FMA is a lie. It's bullshito or whatever, right? And this is where I beg to differ. It's important to not immediately go negative, and immediately start blaming the system and your teacher and the style. That's not a good personality. So I think it's important to be patient, you know, and put on your detective hats on and be Sherlock Holmes. And and I thought to myself, wait a minute, the founders of Filipino martial arts, these were amazing warriors. They knew what they were doing. So I give the benefit of the doubt. So then why? Why is it taught this way? What happened? And yeah, I don't agree with the way that it's taught, where you do this, and break the arm, and this and that. And no, 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 it's not that easy, right? But then I thought to myself, look, let's think about it. I just sparred full contact with a guy who's a way better boxer than me, okay? And I didn't get hit. Sure, the destructions didn't work the way that I thought, right? Like where I blast his punch and his fingers should have been broken and he can no longer punch. That's what should have happened, but it didn't, right? But let's think about it. I fought a boxer and I did not eat a single punch. I didn't have to clinch him. I didn't have to take him to the ground. I stood toe to toe with the guy. And I didn't have to, because MMA strategy is you fight the opposite. If he's a stand-up fighter, you take him to the ground. If he's a grappler, you fight him standing. I didn't even have to do that. I stayed standing against the stand-up fighter, and I didn't even have to kick him. And I didn't get hit. So even though I didn't cause him any damage, I didn't take any damage. That's a victory, folks. So it took me a while to understand that. And to me, that is the true meaning of Defang the snake, which is survival. It even says right here, increasing your chances of survival for purpose. So that's what it is. It is about survival. The most important thing about Defang the snake is to not get hit, is for you to survive. And let's think about that, right? The opponent is going to attack me. Let's go back in time, all right? Back in the Filipinos, when the conquistadors came and they taught certain Filipinos espada y daga, and they learned the art. Okay, so they got this, and they've developed this. The Filipinos made it their own, and they learned the espada y daga, and they combined it with their stuff that they already had, which had like a lot of silat and some kung fu stuff and their own Filipino indigenous stuff. Okay. Anyway, when they're testing this stuff out, right? My opponent has a freaking sword and a dagger. I have a sword and a dagger, and I'm supposed to fight this guy, right? Okay, so if this guy is coming at me and he's trying to kill me, how am I supposed to defeat this guy, right? Well, if he's going for my neck or my heart or my lungs, all these primary targets, and I'm trying to do the same to him, we don't know who's better until we do it, right? So that's a 50-50. It could go either way. We don't know until we do it. And that's not good enough in real life. That's way too much risk. That's like going to the casino and gambling with your life. Therefore, we have to play safer. And what is the safer thing to do, right? And so that guy is trying to attack me, and I would just be trying to survive. And forget about me trying to attack him back, because if I do that, he's trying to hit me in the heart and I try to do the same to him or the throat or whatever, if I can hit him, he can hit me. That's a simple rule. A simple rule, folks. Okay? Therefore, don't do that. That's the safest thing, is to don't try to hit him. And that's how I survive. So it starts with survival. And then from there, okay, well, he's not going to stop his attack. What can I do? What can I do here? Well, if I have to be proactive, what is the minimal thing I can do to where, I am not going to risk myself as much? And then, based off of that survival that I talked about, which is no attacking, don't even attack. Just freaking defend and create distance and get the hell out. That's all you're doing. Don't engage, disengage, right? So from there, the minimal thing I could do is now I could start to attack, guess what? Their weapon. That is the next minimal thing. It's the nearest target. If you're talking about Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's method, right? Where he talks about striking the nearest target is actually his weapon. So that's the safest thing for me to attack. So I could attack his weapon and try to make him drop it, or I could try to attack his, if he has a blade, I can try to numb his edge, you know. So if that's all I'm doing, you know, still I'm increasing my chances of survival. These are all baby steps I'm talking about. So the typical defang the snake that is taught is not a baby step. They're teaching you the final moment, the final finisher. You have to understand that is not something that you could just jump into. And if you try to do that, then I feel like you're going to get hurt because you don't understand it. You have to understand where it comes from and what leads up to it. So hitting their weapon comes first, then hitting something like their fingers or their hands. And then you start going for the wrist and the forearm. You start going deeper and deeper, you know what I mean? And then maybe you could go for like the shoulder. And then finally, after that would be now their torso or and I skipped legs on purpose just because the legs can be out and sticking out in the front too. So it would be right after the arms, probably before the shoulder. But yeah, it's about distance, whatever's closer, you know. So yeah. I hope that makes sense about defanging the snake. And then another thing, real quick, I have to say to close this is defang the snake is that what I just did right now was kind of like a study, a lecture that I would write on a chalkboard or something. You know, when you go into combat, all that needs to be mapped out. You shouldn't be thinking defang the snake, in my opinion. It should already be inclusive in your system. Um, the planning, the strategy, the tactics, the techniques, that should all be put together into a nice and simple system that you could remember and actually do under pressure. So if you're trying to think, should I defang the snake? Should I counter the guy? Or no, should I do this or that instead? This is not very good in my opinion. That's not a good thing to do. It's just going to make you more distracted under pressure, where you're more likely to forget things or misjudge things, or you might just go into tunnel vision, and or freeze up, even worse, right? So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.